again and again with answers. Sometimes the answers are tough and challenging. Sometimes they're comforting, but they're always truthful, and they are usually beautiful. I would like to introduce you to Sophie tonight, Sophie Lady Scruton tonight, who knows more about Roger than anyone else and who inspired many of those works. Sophie. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, for those lovely reminiscences and lovely introduction. And when I first met Roger and started to get to know his friends, you know, imagine the world opening up before me, meeting people like John at dinners and events in London. And I met Lady Thatcher through one of the events that John ran. So I feel incredibly lucky to be introduced by him tonight and to have had so many years enjoying his company and so many happy years with Roger. May I also thank the organisers tonight, everyone who's laid on such a wonderful weekend for us all in this beautiful place and with the wonderful dinners and everything. It's fantastic. So what I thought I might do is say a few things, and I think the things I was thinking you might be interested in are themes that have come up during the course of this weekend. So it looks like I perhaps do know how to be a conservative. And maybe at the end, because I'm sure we'd all wish that Roger would walk through the door and really entertain us, I thought maybe I might read you a few sentences from his book, I Drink, Therefore I Am, as it's a dinner and we're all enjoying our wine. My previous experience of any public speaking has been at a hunt club dinner in England, and so this is quite a daunting audience. Roger began hunting at about probably at about the age I am now, and he took many a tumble, and we were introduced on the hunting field by a friend who thought that we might be able to get along well talking about architectural history. When I heard he'd written 2 books on the subject, I felt that I was probably going to be the first to tumble. But in equestrian matters, I was able to help him enormously, I think, and keep him safe. And I wish he was here now to stop me falling off this stage. Obviously, it's wonderful that Roger has appealed to so many people through his writing. And he does have a real following among young people. I get quite a few emails, even at the moment, where people write to me and say that they're a young person, they've just read their first book of Roger's, and now at last there's somebody who expresses what they feel and are making it clear to them. And he did have this wonderful way of putting into words something that maybe many of us feel is our real personality and our real values, and which we sometimes don't find coming out of political leaders or through our academic lives. So Roger's Roger's ability to articulate conservatism came from such a genuine belief that he thought he must do something about these things he believed in so strongly. And this is really, I think, what explains his incredible achievements and commitment to action. He would always say, you know, we must do something about that. And we see it in a big way in his work in Central and Eastern Europe, where he became interested, and then he spent a long time setting up the Jan Hus Educational Foundation, which meant that young people could receive a curriculum that wasn't censored. And many people there have found that a very interesting thing. And Roger was always doing that. He saw something that bugged him, and he decided to do something about it and lead, or found something or lead something. And I'm sure that's what many people in this room also are thinking of doing about things they worry about. There's quite a long list, but I don't want to miss anything out. I suppose the culmination of some of the things he did was perhaps more recently in his opportunity to influence the government about classical architecture, vernacular architecture, I think I should say. He loved buildings that were developed out of a classicism, but were part of the ordinary street scene, where people could feel comfortable and proud of their town and proud of their neighbourhood and things. And he worked on that with a passion like you have never seen. And one of the speakers today talked about how the job in government is to go on and take it through the bureaucratic process and get it into law. And I feel very lucky that the ministers who've led the department since Roger did that work have all tried to do that. And I think that future legislation is going to have design codes and things in that reflect the aesthetic values that make up the towns. So that's really wonderful. Another thing through all this, Roger got attacked for a lot of this stuff, and it's very nice now to hear people speak, people we look up to like Neil Ferguson. They say without Roger's work, carving out a slot for conservative arguments, it would have been harder for people like him to go on and do what he's doing now. So, Roger was very courageous in some of the things he did. And I think that for sort of politicians such as Matthias, if Roger had had the opportunity to be a politician, the Conservative Party wouldn't select him, but if he had had an opportunity, he would have done it with gusto. And obviously, many of us might recoil from having to go out there and do all that, but that would have been the end goal of his public spirit, to actually go out and take part in politics. Then we've had this wonderful performance this evening of the Schubert and the Beethoven. Roger could play the piano. He could do it he was so good at sight reading, he could just have a go at everything. And he got so much pleasure out of it. And he really was a sort of Renaissance man in terms of his talents with the arts and languages. And through that, he made so many of his friends. And it's his group of friends that have been the great sort of consolation in his life. And the great thing he falls back on. And that's come up through this love of culture. And in fact, I was reading How to Be a Conservative on the plane on the way over, just to get myself remind myself about how he came to write some of the books. And he mentions that it was actually his love of culture that made him try and change the Conservative Party. And so that was really what he was trying to put into conservatism for them. So the group of friends were the people who could help him keep going, pick him up after the cancel culture attacks and things like that. And also it was his culture that meant that in those attacks he could switch and do something else. So that's the sort of good thing I could recommend to anybody here. If you love drawing, don't neglect it, because if times are difficult, you can just go and do that, and it focuses your energies on something. that is a consolation to you and helps you work through the difficult times. I'm sure many of you think, I wonder what the Scruton family thinks about the ways in which Roger is being taken up now. And of course, we're really pleased about it. I was thinking about, obviously he's not being taken up in any one way by any one person or even country or think tank, but in lots of different ways. And I was thinking that, one of the things he absolutely loved as a institution is the British common law system, whereby the legal process is something that one thing builds upon another. One case influences the decision about the next case, etc. And I think, we've got the 52 books that we can go back to, but the fact that people in Sweden or Italy or Chile or Guatemala are taking a little bit of what Roger believed in and doing their own thing with it is really a wonderful legacy that we're all very happy about. And so I hope that, people in this room who might find one little bit of the writing inspiring will use it to do what they want to do in the new circumstances. And so that's really all I wanted to talk to you about. Now I'll just read you, if that's all right, a few extracts from the introduction to I Drink, Therefore I Am. So this sentence, and many of it, when I reread the book last year, I wrote J in the margin next to every joke. Well, there are about 3 J's per page, so I think it's a good book to start with if you haven't read Roger before. So this is something, maybe he's commenting on the way in which education systems have let young people down. He says, thanks to cultural impoverishment, young people no longer have a repertoire of songs, poems, arguments, or ideas with which to entertain one another in their cups. They drink to fill the moral vacuum generated by their culture. And while we are familiar with the adverse effect of drink on an empty stomach, we are now witnessing the far worse effect of drink on an empty mind. This second sentence perhaps ties in with some of the ideas we've been talking about in the discussion about green conservatism and the sort of culture of health wars. He says here, whatever the effect of wine on physical health, it has far more significant effects on mental health, both negative when detached from the symposium culture and positive when joined to it. Already in America, wine bottles have to be marked with a health warning. If the purpose is to educate the public, then all well and good, provided the warning tells the truth, which it doesn't. But the same educative goal ought to persuade us to put health warnings on bottled water too, reminding us of the dreary states of mind that come from drinking it, of the need to take time off from hypochondria in order to give food and drink to the soul, and of the ecological madness of transporting around the world in bottles the stuff that rains from above us and flows beneath our feet. And now the last little bit. In this book, I discuss wine as an accompaniment to philosophy, and philosophy as a byproduct of wine. In my view, wine is an excellent accompaniment to food, but it is a better accompaniment to thought. And by thinking with wine, you can learn not merely to drink in thoughts, but to think in draughts. By swallowing premise, argument, and conclusion in one full, satisfying stream, you do not merely understand an idea, you fit it to the life in you. You come to gauge not only its truth and coherence, but its value. Wine is something you live by. So too is an idea.